So yeah, let's talk about Damian Lillard, the Blazers, and some of this will be basketball stuff, but some of this is also going to be more NBA discourse stuff, the loyalty word and all that. So look, Dame is under contract now for the next 5 seasons, $42 million this year, $63 million in 2027. And it seems like he's going to spend his entire career in Portland. I mean, there was a Gilbert Arenas, J.R. Smith clip going around Twitter a little bit saying, is Dame really just going to play out his last years in Portland and not try to get traded somewhere else and go for a title and that whole thing? But then there's another thing you see, and I'm not saying that people who say one of these things are also saying the other thing, but disliking how much movement there is around the league and guys, they want out of one place too quickly or whatever. And maybe that's the silver lining. It's the fact that Dame has been in Portland for so long that people wouldn't give him as much crap if he wanted out. I don't know, dude. Like, what do you want me to say if Damian Lillard and Bradley Beal want to stay where they've been at for a while now? Am I supposed to say they're wrong for that? Now, in terms of a pure basketball asset management, projecting the Blazers' future and all that stuff, was this the absolute best decision? Would it have been better to trade Dame? Well, for one, it would have had to have been before this previous season because Dame got hurt in December and he was just out for the rest of the year, so I doubt anybody would have traded for him at that time. So then you try to think of that far back. But from what I remember, it was mainly the Sixers and the Knicks that were rumored the most for Dame when that little will Dame actually want out thing popped up. And look, at that time the Knicks didn't have as many picks, but it could have been RJ. That would have been the hope for the Blazers. Of course, a lot of picks would have been moving. Obi's possibly in that move, probably in the move. That's what the Blazers would have asked for, on top of making the money work, of course. In the case of Ben Simmons, well, number one, I don't think Philly would have given you every single draft pick in the world on top of the guy, which would have hurt a move, because they only gave the Nets 2 firsts on top of Simmons for Harden, as well as, he's had the back injury now, and well, that would not have been fun if you traded Dame and then Ben Simmons missed a bunch of time with the back. Doing a quick scan of the internet from a year ago, I saw some speculation on would the Celtics trade Jalen, would the Pelicans trade Ingram, and then both of those guys got better and Dame only played 29 games. That's the NBA for you. Looking at the team now, I think the big conversation is the defense, right? Because offensively, pretty much whenever Dame was healthy, he was able to drag them to being one of the best offenses in the league. And Simons can put on his Dame impression at times with his version of the pull-up threes and the contested shots and all that, right? So defenses will be freaked out on those. They're going to play those guys high on screens, which can lead to Nurkic getting something on the roll, and then whether that's him finishing or a kick out to Jeremy Grant who's in the corner or Josh Hart or whoever it might be. Speaking of Josh Hart, he was cooking after they did the CJ move. The most interesting things looking back on that were, number one, the amount of times that he would bring the ball up court himself and just basically be like, I'm just going to go in a straight line, because he's a bigger dude. He's 6'5", 220, and just kind of muscle his way to the paint. And then also the type of off-ball actions they were running where they would have double down screens for him. I was like, that's kind of interesting. Allow him to get some momentum ahead of time. There is some questions with Jeremy Grant and how willing will he be to go back to kind of Nuggets Jeremy Grant. He's not going to be getting a lot of isolations like that. Perhaps Chauncey can stagger some minutes to where Grant is playing with the second unit, and that allows him to get his Pistons Jeremy Grant on a little bit more. Also, I mentioned screen setting earlier. I also wonder if Gary Payton II will be setting screens for Simons and Dame, because he was doing that a bit for the Warriors, of course. And I guess we can segue into the defense with Payton now. Between him, Nurkic, who's hopefully healthy, Josh Hart, Nasir Little, Justice Winslow, is that enough defense around Dame and Simons? If I said it in my tier list video, if they open up the season in that trapping scheme again, I'm not going to be very high on the Blazers. It's not that you can't do it at all, but it can't be the thing that you go to the most, because teams are just going to see it coming, right? The farthest this team has gone in the playoffs was 2019. They got swept by the Warriors, of course, but it was a great round 2 win over the Nuggets, right? They were 16th in defense that year. They allowed the most mid-range attempts in the league. And I think that was by design. I think it was more drop coverage, and that was with Nurkic being the starting center and all that. The other questions defensively are, one, will Chauncey view Jeremy Grant as a guy who he's putting on the opposing team's best wing player, or is it more so put him on a blast shooter to allow him to be more of a help defender? I'm going to guess that Josh Hart's going to be guarding the better perimeter players on the opposing team, so Dame and Simons can take a little more of a break on defense? Are you going to have to lean on Gary Payton II super hard with his minutes as an on-ball defender, but also do you want to play Dame, Payton, and Simons together like that? I feel like all that can work if you're not asking guys to trap and then, oh crap, close out the guy on the three-point line. We're all flying around and we just gave up a wide open dunk. When I say it can work, I think the hope is that you're about league average defensively. So that's the gist. With all that said, if you force me to have a pick on them right now, I would say the play-in tournament, because getting the top 6 in the West, it's going to be tough.